Hey guys, this is a follow-up video to my MillivoltOSD from Flight 1. I did a tips video on how to wire it a couple months ago, and I've learned a lot about the flight controller, and I really want to do a follow-up to give you some tips on wiring it based on what I've learned since then. Essentially, filling up a few of the holes that I kind of left in that last video. Right here, this is the Flight 1 MillivoltOSD. It is a 20 by 20 board, of course, by Flight 1. At the time I did that other video, I was running Flight 1 stable, but these days I'm mostly running Falco X, namely some of the alpha versions. They are really good, and even though they are alpha and beta versions, they are pretty reliable. Just you gotta make sure to be careful on how you set them up on your own setups. Over here I have a Neutron R by Flight Club, or FPB Flight Club. I normally race Neutrons by FPB Flight Club, but the other ones I kind of put them all through the ringer. So I started building the newer R version, which is this is the first build. Based on that, I have 3. On here, I have a Talon Gigawatt ESC by Helination. I actually just posted a video about this, so I'll link it in the description below so you learn more about that ESC. I'm running a 50 volt 220 microfarad capacitor, which this is specifically set up for 6S, although I plan on also running 5S on it. Where on my older setups you would have seen a 35 volt cap. I really recommend you do 50 volt for 6S. Anyway, this guy is gonna go here, and in general I put him upside down so the MCU is actually up, so there's very little interference coming from the noise that the FETs make on that thing. The gummies are not on. This is a brand new flight controller, but that's generally the way it's gonna go. Actually, given the plugs in the front, it's gonna go like that. So on almost every single Flight 1 flight controller, I run them upside down so the MCU is pointed up. Okay, here's the USB, so basically I run it upside down. What we are really gonna look here is, given this is a follow-up to the previous video, I'm gonna tell you a couple of things that I learned about it. On the previous video, I was powering a 5 volt TBS Unify Nano, which is a 5 volt only VTX, and I was powering it from the port for GPS. And the reason I was doing that is to use that 5 volt out for it, and that generally works very well. There's a lot of guys out there that are running that setup and they are pretty happy. However, what I found was that the regulator on the smaller 20 by 20 boards, at least on the Flight 1 boards, is not quite as strong and as reliable as the 5 volt regulator on the 30 by 30 boards like the RevoltOSD or the RevoltOSD Lite. It is just a physical sort of drawback based on how small these boards are and how they have to cram everything into a very small container. Even Preston Garrison himself told me that yes, the 30 by 30 boards tend to have a stronger and a more reliable regulator. That's just the way it is, not a problem. We do make a few sacrifices when we go 20 by 20, mainly for weight and size and packaging, but yeah, sometimes you end up with a couple small sacrifices that have to be made. So for these and future builds, even though technically going 5 volt out from the GPS port is actually okay, in general I won't do it simply because towards the end of the life on the board, it starts getting pretty noisy. I found out that about after 60 or 70 packs and a lot of crashes, I started getting a lot more noise in my video than when it was new. So basically the regulator was showing its age. So from now on, at least, it's up to you if you really want to run a 5 volt VTX because of the convenience. You can do it, but do know that eventually your regulator will probably give out. I'm going to run the TBS Unify Race 2 because this is a high volt VTX, so it means I can go straight out of one of the plugs that is for the VTX, or just power it straight out of the ESC, and that way I do not have to worry about stressing out the 5 volt regulator on the SC. That is probably the biggest takeaway that I have from running at least 4 or 5 of these boards on various quads. Let's go more over this way a little bit more towards the shade. Okay. So, the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a diagram on the screen for the pinout for these boards. That pinout is on flight1.com/support, and towards the bottom of the page you'll see there's a drop down with all the different Flight 1 boards, and there you can find the pinout for this guy. This is the V2, and the V2 of the MillivoltOSD essentially has 4 pins for the camera plug, and but honestly I don't think camera control works yet. I'm sure eventually they'll put it on Falco X, but I've never actually run it. So make sure to look at that pinout because everything is pretty straightforward. Let me pull the computer over here so I know what I'm telling you. So the main things you want to look at are that when you look at the board like this, how's the exposure? That's bright. Okay, hold on. More down to the shade. Alright, so here I'm holding the board in the same orientation as the diagram. And here are the things that really I want you to understand. Over here, this is the connector for that you would connect TBS. Actually, you could connect FR Sky here as well. The point is that a 5 volt receiver goes here. In Flight 1, I know it sounds odd, the out or the signal from the RX goes to TX1. I know that's different. And telemetry always goes to RX3. So as long as you get that right, you'll be okay. Remember, channel 1 out of, let's say for example, a TBS Crossfire receiver goes to TX1, and then out from RX3 back to channel 2 on the receiver. Again, very different than Betaflight, very different than KISS. That is just the way these guys do it, and they said themselves that for Falco X it is almost hardwired. You cannot change it. So make sure to follow this or you're gonna have problems. This other plug over here is for, say, Spectrum. Hey guys, I need to make a correction for Spectrum users. I said that you could use this plug for connecting your Spectrum receiver because it has 3.3 volts, but I just spoke with the guys over at Flight 1 and they assured me that for Falco X, because it is hardwired, you still have to use the TX1 pin to wire in your signal. That means that yes, you might be able to power your 3.3 volt Spectrum receiver from here with that ground, but your signal wire still has to go to TX1, otherwise it won't work. Alright guys, this is important, so pay attention. When your signal comes in from your receiver and inputs into TX1, then you have to tell the board what kind of signal it is, whether it's normal or inverted. I'm not going to go into all the details as to what system uses what. I'm just going to tell you about the ones that I know, which is, for example, FR Sky. I know it uses an inverted signal. So if you use FR Sky, you would bridge these two paths to tell the system, yeah, it is an inverted signal. If it's like TBS Crossfire, then you would bridge normal and TX1 because it uses a normal signal. If you use Spectrums, Fly Sky, and any other system, you have to find out what your system is meant to be so that you can bridge the proper paths here. The same goes for bridging the paths for TX4. I believe this is used for like Hellgate buzzers and a couple other features that you would have like a switch. I do not use it, so I don't know specifically what it's for, but you should also find out if it uses a normal or inverter signal before you bridge those two. For me, I don't use this, so I just leave it right open. But for any of you guys that want to use TX4, that is what it's for. You should find out whether your signal is inverted or normal. Moving on. This is a really important one over here for your current reading. TX6, that is what is used for your current reading or BL-Heli32 telemetry. In my last video, I pointed out that, but I wasn't sure at the time which one I was going to choose. However, I'll tell you right now, I do not use BL-Heli32 telemetry because for these racers, I usually don't care. I just want a current reading and I'm done. This is where you choose that. TX6 bridge to current TX6 will give you BL-Heli32 telemetry capability, but if you bridge the other two, all you get is current. There is something kind of confusing that I want you guys to understand, and it is that even though it says for BL-Heli-S without a current sensor, no bridge required, but it says here in the middle, for BL-Heli-S with current sensor, bridge current and TX6, these two at the bottom. Some people believe that that's only for BL-Heli-S. That is not true. I run BL-Heli32 in that setup, but basically I am foregoing and not using the BL-Heli32 telemetry and just getting a standard traditional current reading. So again, even if you bridge current TX6 with current as you would for BL-Heli-S, that is fine as well for BL-Heli32 if you just want a current reading. That is the way I run it. I bridge these two. Okay, moving on. That is basically the main caveats of this board that you really have to understand. Also note that some ESCs will have a pad for current and also a pad for telemetry. This board only gives you one, so you have to choose which one you want. Me, that I'm running this ESC, I have current and I have telemetry, so I only really use one of those two pins. The other one doesn't get wired. I run the current one to current TX6, bridge these two to get my current reading, and the other one just stays open. Everything else is just about the same. Just know that you sometimes have to change the wiring in your harness to what you are wiring for. So be careful to double check that, triple check that, because oftentimes even with a smoke stopper, if you screw that up, because it's after a regulator, you can still smoke something. So be careful. Finally, a couple more points. The buzzer does work. There was some issues with the original versions of Falco X that the buzzer was not working properly. Now it actually is, so feel free to do it. I do not run assignable LEDs, so I haven't tested that, so I cannot tell you. And on this side, that's pretty much it. Let's go move over to this side for a second. Again, this is your area for your GPS that I don't run anymore. I mean, at least not on these rigs. There is functionality for it on Falco X, by the way, so keep that in mind. And this is self-explanatory. You have camera control, video in, ground, and 5 volts for your camera. Do check and keep an eye out on the latest Falco X releases. Again, flight1.com/alpha and flight1.com/beta to find these versions, because as they make changes, they might eventually add camera control if they haven't already. At the moment, I just wire it so it's connected, but I do not use it. On some builds, I don't even run it. So just do know that it doesn't work, at least from the date this video was recorded, or as far as I know, it doesn't work yet. And on my old builds, I was running only video out because I wasn't running a VBAT VTX or ground, so I was going to these two over here, right? And then TX3 is to do control for the VTX through smart audio. I do not use that either. You would run it here if you want to do it like that, but I go straight to Crossfire and control my VTX through Crossfire on the module. So I even skip this. I've been doing that on KISS and I've been doing that on Betaflight as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, I don't think I'm really forgetting anything. That is pretty much it. Essentially, all the things that I said on the first video are still very much relevant. The only things that vary that I would say right now are just the way I'm powering the VTX and the way I am wiring the current. So if you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I am happy to find out, let you know. I am wanting to do a Flight 1 series. So this is likely going to be one of the videos in that series. Make sure to watch the first one as well. I'll link it in the description, and I'll put it at the top corner as well, because for this video to make a lot of sense, you definitely want to watch that one as well, because they basically complement each other. These are great boards. I wish there was a version with all pads and no connectors, or at least just one connector for the ESC, and that's it. But I spoke to Preston, and he said that the volume of boards in 20x20 that he sells compared to the MillivoltOSD just does not warrant making a full pad only version of it. So the last tip I'm going to give you is, after you wire this up, I would recommend you use hot glue around the connectors, because yes, on big crashes they can pop off. It's happened to me, and having a hot glue around the connectors kind of looks ugly, but it's what you have. It's what we have. If you want a 120x20 Flight 1 Falco X, this is the only board that can do it right now. So you're kind of stuck with using hot glue. There we have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like this video, share it. Anybody that asks questions about Flight 1 or about this board, go ahead and share it in the different groups online that you might find this might be helpful. I'll see you in the next one.